Jetzt auch mit Ton.
Jetzt auch mit Ton?
Ja. Test, Test.
Sind wir wieder da? Wir werden immer pünktlicher, das ist ja geil.
Ja. Sind da genug Pausen dazwischen zum Aufholen?
Danke für die Kritik.
Ich dachte, das war geplant.
So, we are live?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome back to the almost last session of the day. This time is about the last overview you need to know on how to extend S/4HANA on-premise.
As a developer.
As a developer. Again, I repeat myself, no problem. Shorter titles for next year, please. And yeah, we have here Joshua from Munich region, right?
Yeah, Lower Bavaria.
Lower Bavaria. There is also the living proof when you send in an abstract in the call for speakers, prepared to get a call from me to clarify some questions. Yeah, so don't pick up the phone, in other words. But yeah, enough of me. Have a great session, and the audience is yours.
Great, thank you. Yeah, maybe still a little bit more of introduction about myself. My name is Joshua, as already mentioned. I'm working as a Fiori developer, more like full stack developer. I do ABAP as well. And I've pretty much worked with everything you could think of the newer technologies. Like I've been working with the BTP, CAP, RAP, whatsoever. The only thing I don't want to touch is modifications and user exits. This is for my older colleagues. Thank you. Yeah, as you heard, I have a little clickbaity title, but I thought, why not? And it will probably not be the last overview, actually, but at least it will give a pretty big picture. At least this is what I'm planning to do. And before we get into it, maybe a short look into an agenda. I like agendas, so we know what we're looking on today. First of all, I want to clarify for whom is this presentation actually. Because you may think like, has never worked with user exits. What does he want us to tell? What should he tell us about of all the technologies? And then I want to get into the details of what's the actual problem, in my opinion, with S/4HANA extensibility on-premise right now. I want to get the most relevant topics out of it, with at least the topics that are relevant in my opinion. And I want to bring them all together in some kind of decision guide, which I want to present you today. And in the end, I'll use the option to be on stage and show a little open source project I created. Maybe it's interesting. If not, at least it had a chance to be heard about. Okay, for whom is this? As I mentioned, I've been doing a lot of different technologies already. And I'm working in an S/4HANA conversion project right now. I've been working with a lot of new external colleagues from different consultancies, with juniors, with colleagues with like more experience than I'm old. But there's always new stuff coming out right now. There's always, every half a year, there's new released objects, new technologies to be used, new services published for the BTP. And I think even for people with a lot of experience already, this may be interesting to just get an idea of how people that are new to SAP, like me, I'm working with SAP for like 5 years now, how we approach functional requirements right now. And yeah, if you're new to SAP, I guess this should be interesting as well, of course. And yeah, but enough of that. Let's get into it. The main problem, in my opinion, there are so many sources, like sources all over the internet. We have hundreds of different websites by SAP. We have the SAP Help Portal, Fiori Apps Library, Sub-Community, so many sources with all possibilities of information. And of course, we have third-party blogs. Shout out to Software Heroes, for example, very great website. But yeah, events like this one. One of the last events that actually works for developers, in my opinion. Most others are a lot of marketing stuff. But I want to show you two sources which are very great, in my opinion, to get an understanding of what's actually possible and how to work with the function requirement as a developer and get it down to your actual technical use cases and technical building blocks. It's this too, public documents and the BTP guidance framework. I'm not sure if everybody knows the public documents. It's not very great naming, but SAP has documents, PDF files they are publishing. You can find them via sap.com/documents/year/month/some random unique ID. So if you don't know what you're looking for, you'll never find it. That's one big issue in my opinion. You can find them, if you're lucky, by finding them in blogs in the sub-community, and in some cases also in presentations. Like in the ABAPConf, in the ABAPConf 2024, there was a presentation also mentioning these documents, and I wanted to get into them in a minute. The second one is the BTP guidance framework. It's somewhat new for us in SAP terms. It's like 1.5 years old. And the name may be misleading. It's not only for the BTPs. It describes a methodology on how to approach functional requirements with newer technologies, with a S4HANA mindset, you can say. But okay, we get to that later. There are 3 documents I want to mention today. All of them have links in it. I guess this presentation will be published as well. And I hope you can all check out the links then. Yeah, as mentioned, this has also, at least the documents, have also been named in the talk I mentioned up there. Unfortunately, the talk was in German, so not everybody of you will be able to listen to it, but the slides are in English. From these 3 documents, one has a golden shadow, because in my opinion, it's like the holy grail. If you want to get to understand on how to, or at least how SAP wants us to extend an S4HANA system, you should check this one out. It will explain different models, on which I'll come to in some slides. And it will give you a perspective on how SAP sees their S4HANA system and wants us to work with it. The other 2 are very nice as well, but they are more like a detailed view on these models they define in the first document. Like the second, for example, will give you an explanation on how to work with a 3-tier model. And the last one is already pretty nice, also somewhat new from 2023. It will give you an insight into how you can approach requirements with technical use cases in mind already. Okay, the second thing, my button doesn't work. This doesn't work as well. Habe ich was kaputt gemacht? No, it works again. The BTP guidance framework. It's a collection of different sites on the SAP help page, and it will give you, like the name will give that already, it will give you guidance on how to work with different topics. And it's a little bit better structured, in my opinion, than the document with the use cases explained in it. But enough of all the sources. I just want to get to the gist of it. We want to talk about tech a little bit more and of the different models and ways on how to approach our requirement. Therefore, I picked 3 topics from the document and from the BTP guidance framework I want to talk about and want to tell you about, which is from the document first, the cloud extensibility model. I know everybody will know that already, like it has been shown in hundreds of different slides. I will be fast with that, I promise. The 3-tier model, and last but not least, the application extension methodology, which comes from the BTP guidance framework, BTP methodology. Okay, as I mentioned, this will be fast. Just to understand for you, for the newer colleagues, if you want to extend an S4HANA system, SAP splits it up into 4 different blocks on how to, 4 different options on how to extend the S4HANA system. 3 are shown here because the 4th, SAP doesn't want us to know about it and doesn't want us to use it. It's the classic extensibility. Key user extensibility basically means we can do low-code to no-code solutions in our system. It works, for example, for adding new fields to the system or for adapting the UI of standard apps. Still, at least in my opinion, it is more like an extensibility for developers, not for key users, because it will create development objects. You don't want a key user to create a new field in the VBAC and move it to P. It will hurt for some time. The developer extensibility is like the pro code variant of it. Whenever we do something that is cloud ready and upgrade stable, which means we use the newer APIs, newer syntax, and so on, it will be part of the developer extensibility. Whenever we use something else, it's the classic extensibility, which is to be retired in the future. And the last one, side-by-side extensibility, basically means that we move one part of our application at least to another platform. Doesn't matter if it's the logic, if it's the UI, or the persistence, we move it to, for example, the BTP. Enough of this one. One additional model, which in my opinion is pretty important just to understand, and it's not as popular as the first one, at least from what I saw from colleagues I've been talking with, is the so-called 3-tier model. It's only relevant if you're using the on-premise S/4HANA on-premise version or the private edition. It basically splits up the types of implementations you can do into the 3 different tiers. If you're doing something that is currently not released for cloud, it's tier 3. So all the old bodies which have not been released, for which successors have been created, for example, land in there. And when you use something that is already released, it will be tier 1. If you have tried to implement a lot of different extensions in your system, you will have noticed there's still a lot of stuff missing as defined as cloud ready. So what SAP wants us to do then, we should wrap it in a class which we define as cloud ready. So we have a class defined as cloud ready with code in it that is not cloud ready. But this then can be used in our cloud ready development without interfering with tier 1 development approach. The idea in the end is whenever SAP will bring out a new version or a successor, we can just replace it in the wrapper and we don't need to modify 20 pieces of code where it has been called. And also we can manage it better. So we can make sure that tier 2 developments, wrappers are only being done by, for example, lead developers or whatsoever. Just to keep that in mind, at least from what I heard from colleagues and external consultancies, it's not that popular with a lot of customers. But if there's a customer that wants you to use it, know that this is out there. And yeah, now the more important part, in my opinion, is the application extension methodology, which is a part of the BTP guidance framework. It is split up into these 3 phases. This one will guide you through the way how to go from a function requirement to the technical building blocks. I will show you in a minute what technical building blocks mean in this case. First of all, basically means you need to understand the function requirement, obviously. Otherwise, you're not able to develop it into your code. There's also some system context that is obviously somehow connected to the requirement, and you can break it down into different use cases you have. The more important phase, in my opinion, is phase 2, at least for us developers, in which we will break down the use cases even more into the different extension styles. We'll break those up into tasks, and in the end, we'll do a technology mapping. So map them to whatever technology we want to use. Phase 3 is more like defining the target solution, having a guidance. I want to skip that. And how does SAP offer us an information what technology is out there? They have an Excel file, of course. It's also linked here because, in my opinion, this is one of the greatest achievements in SAP documentation in the last years. It is also being steadily upgraded and updated, which is also pretty good for SAP standards. And currently it's, I guess, in version 2.3, and it has a lot of new technologies in there as well. In the first version, there have been a lot of technologies missing, which I saw directly when I moved them to our local documentation. But now it's actually pretty accurate in there. As you can see, it's split up into the different tiers: presentation tier, logic tier, data tier, and then afterwards being split up into the different styles, like new user interface creation, creating a form, doing business logic, and so on. And afterwards, it can be even more broken up into tasks, like creating a workflow or adapting a standard process. This is actually pretty great, in my opinion, when it comes to doing a technical specification. What does SAP want us to have the result look like? Something like this. So we have our functional requirement. Afterwards, we can break it down into these different building blocks, add a reasoning why we chose that. For example, if we chose a classic extensibility approach, there's hopefully a reason why we did that. Another example how this could look like this is a very basic example. Create a simple to-do list app would basically mean we need some kind of persistence to save our to-dos. We need a UI to present this data to the user and some way to move the data from the database to the UI, so an API. If we are just working with S4HANA without any specialties like doing BTP, some fancy services from the BTP and so on, it's probably just a custom table, so normal Z table, RAP-based OData service, and a SAP Fiori app. Yeah, I skipped the reasoning because it doesn't matter for this case. Okay, now I've shown a lot of stuff from the SAP, stuff you could also find on the internet. Hopefully, I was able to condense it a little bit more. Yeah, then what is it, what we actually need as developers? I created 3 points out of that. Points we need to effectively and efficiently analyze and break down our functional requirements into workable building blocks. They may sound pretty simple, but I wanted to create like such a list of steps. Of course, we need to have a very good understanding of the extensibility model and its options. It may sound lame because SAP tells us about this model all the time, but there are a lot of people that have no idea what the BTP can do. Or why should I use key user extensibility? I'm a developer. There's a lot of stuff that can be done very easy and with a lot less maintenance effort in the future if we do it with key user extensibility, for example. And therefore, in my opinion, it's pretty important that you understand what you can do with them and when to use them. Well, the second one is hard. An actual well-formulated functional requirement. We can't write that, and if we would write that, what's wrong with this thing? Let's put it away. I press buttons too often. As I mentioned, it's hard for us to do that, and whenever we get a function requirement, most of us will know it. It's like back and forth discussing, should it be done like that? What would be the better solution? And in the best case, we have someone that can do both and have a great requirement description. The last one, something that is missing in my opinion in most cases, a somewhat unified and structured way on how to handle these requirements. Right now, we try to do something like that. We have guidelines. Each company, each consultancy, we all have some kind of guideline, but they are on a very low technical level. We describe variable names, we describe how to handle translations and all this stuff, but we don't really describe how to work with a functional requirement, how to break it down, what technologies actually to use in most cases. And that's why I thought I'd try to bring all this stuff from SAP together with some stuff I learned over the years and create some kind of decision guide, which I'd like to present to you today. Well, no worries, I'll zoom in later on. First of all, it's like a poster. It's open source, everybody can download it, modify it. And as this has only been created by me right now, I'm pretty sure there's missing a lot of stuff and I did a lot wrong. So I hope whoever is interested in helping and working with it, please, there's also an email address. If you're not used to GitHub, you can send me an email, say this is bullshit, please fix it. Great, I'll do that. Otherwise, you can, of course, do a pull request and whatsoever on GitHub. Let me open it and show you what it looks like. First of all, it has 3 layers. It's like, oh, you can't see it. It's like a copy of, or it's pretty similar to the big picture SAP brought out for the BTP some months ago. I broke it down into 3 topics. Architectural, which is currently pretty empty because I'm not that good in this part. Then we have the conceptual. This is the darker blue one. And in the end, we have the actual, just because it sounded nice. So let's get into it. Architecture. As you see, it's pretty empty. I just added tooling there because I thought it pretty important for you guys to understand what IDEs to use. A lot of people just start with Workbench because they never heard about ADT. Just know that there's ADT out there, you should use it. And only in cases where you can't use it, because you have some very fancy debugging requirements whatsoever, revert to ABAP Workbench. And if you're doing front-end development, of course, use Business Application Studio. I didn't mention VS Code here because Business Application Studio is basically VS Code in a web version, so it doesn't matter. But there's still stuff missing. I'm not really sure about how to handle those stuff, so if you have any ideas, please let me know. I will add this here. Okay, conceptual. We have our function requirement in front of us. What to do now? We need somehow to determine which extensibility option to choose. And there's actually a pretty nice decision tree created by SAP. And it is part of the Holy Grail document I mentioned earlier. So feel free to check that out in detail. It basically allows us to break our requirement down by checking out the target group. So are the users actually users of our SAP system, or are that external people? Software as a service solution is not that relevant in most cases, but what I see in this point pretty often is, do we want to use services offered by the BTP, like AI services, workflow services, external user management, and so on. Yeah, same goes for the infrastructure. I'm not going to read it all in detail, but infrastructure is basically scalability. System of records is how tightly coupled are we to the system. So if you want to extend a standard process, we're probably not going to use the BTP in pretty often. Stuff like that. And in the end, we can decide if we want to use key user extensibility, developer extensibility, or side-by-side extensibility. Be aware, not all requirements will fit only in one category. Of course, there will be some cases where you have, for example, the front end on the BTP and the logic on premise. If you have decided on this stuff, we can move down to, well, I can't see it from my desktop, to break down the requirement in the technical extension building blocks. How did I set this up? On the left, you have the decision tree you found on the Excel as well, but maybe in a little bit more visually appealing way. And I break it down into the 4 different options we have to extend the system. One thing I also added in here is start with key user extensibility whenever possible. If it doesn't work, revert to developer extensibility. If that doesn't work, revert to classic extensibility, which is to be retired. So in best case, we don't use that one. And yeah, you can see, you can find all the different extension building blocks, which is stuff like, for example, for creating a new UI, it's DynPro, Web DynPro, it's a Fiori app. Custom business configuration can be discussed, but it's basically a front end to maintain tables. Or you can also do Fiori apps in the BTP. So you see all the different options you have. Because what I did in the beginning is I searched in the internet, what can I do, what options do I have? There have been a lot of options. I never knew what option to choose from and what was actually suitable for my use case. And you can find them all listed here. I also started adding the links from the Excel file. So if I click this link, I will also be directly moved to the SAP help page. The last one, because you may have seen that I only wrote down SAP Fiori app instead of Fiori elements and SAP UI5. I have the actual decisioning based on detailed information, for example, on how to decide what Fiori app framework to choose from. Let me zoom into this one. This is not copied from anywhere. I created it by experience, let's say. Maybe it's wrong, but it's what worked for me in the last years. So we can choose based on OData service, floor plan, and so on, if we are going to use Fiori elements, SAP UI5, or the flexible programming model. Okay, enough of showing off the document. Let's actually check it out based on the requirement. So I got a pretty simple one just to make, there I want to go, So just that we can see on how I worked with it for some months now. This may not make sense, but it's a requirement. A list of special vendors needs to be maintained. Whenever a service order with one of the special vendors is being created, this needs to be logged into a table, and our employees need to be able to modify and view this logged information. That's it. And what we can do now is, with this requirement, we can start in the, can't find my mouse here. We can start in the conceptual part to determine which extensibility options to choose from. The first sentence of the requirement, well, this is already pretty good separated. A normal requirement will be pages long, and we need to structure it first. But the first sentence says we need to have some way to maintain special vendors, which will later on be used to check other stuff. So what will we have in here? As we are only working with our employees in our local system, our target group is our own users. Therefore, we don't need to move to the BTP. We are not using a software as a service solution or any fancy services. It is probably also not an infrastructure issue with scalability. And we are pretty tightly coupled as we want somehow log our creation of service orders. So we will end up in the key user or the developer extensibility option. And now, first of all, we need a table to store our special vendors, whatever a special vendor is. So we go down to the data model extension. We don't want to adapt a table, but we want to create a persistence. We can either now use the custom business object or the custom table. It's that easy. As I want to use some special kind of front end, let's say, I'm going to use the custom table, not the custom business object. And the front end I want to build upon this is a new user interface, create custom UI. And in my case, I don't want to build a custom Fiori app to maintain it to create the app manually with probably even a little bit of coding in it. I'm going to use a custom business configuration, the successor of the table maintenance. It will automatically be generated via ADT. It will create CDS views and whatsoever, and will automatically be added to the standard app that allows us to maintain the table. So we have two building blocks, custom business configuration and a custom table, and the first part of the requirement is done. Next part is whenever a service order is being created with one of the special vendors, we want to write this data into a table. So pretty easy again, we're going to use a custom table again, but now we need to somehow find out whenever a service order is being created. What does the experienced ABAP developer do? A business logic extension. So what we can do here is adopt a standard business process, in our case, the process of creating a service order. And we have now the options, custom logic app, which is still it's pro code, but it's in the key user extensibility part. We have the ABAP bodies, which are released, so we are in the developer extensibility, or we choose a normal unreleased ABAP body, which is a classic extensibility. And all the bad stuff coming behind that, we don't want to use that. In our case, we can use a released body, which is order create, I guess it's named. And so the next building block is done. Now we are at 4 building blocks, 2 tables, 1 custom business configuration, and 1 released ABAP body. Last but not least, our employees want to be able to see into this log data and modify it. So in this case, we need a front end. And as it should be a little bit more fancy maybe than just the table maintenance, we'll use a normal SAP Fiori app that will allow us to edit the data and visualize it. For the Fiori app to work, we can go to a business logic extension again, choose API. We want to create an API, and we can either choose a RAP-based OData service in this case, or an SEGW-based OData service. We want to be somewhat cloud ready, so we use the RAP-based OData service. So we're done pretty much with 6 different building blocks. We broke down the requirement and now are able to define the details, like table fields, entities of the RAP service, and so on. So we have a pretty structured way on how to work with every functional requirement. Yeah, if we want to break it even more down, we can check out the Fiori app decision tree. as we're using a RAP-based OData service, we can choose from V2 and V4. We want to use V4 because of the better functionalities. And now we can see the next question, does it fit a Fiori Elements floor plan? I guess it's a pretty simple requirement. We do have a list object page, so it does fit here. And then we'll select the Fiori Elements as our framework with the option to adapt it via flexible programming model. And in the end, it could look like, okay, somehow it moved a little bit to this. And this is basically the technical specification we can use to break the requirement down further. And most of developers, at least from my company and the experience I had, is they're pretty easy to work with if they have such list. They know they need to create a custom table, and then also can define the fields necessary in different chapters below that in the technical specification. They know they should use a custom business configuration. Maybe they don't know what it is, but they only know table maintenance dialogues. So at least they have a word to look out for on the internet and get into it. This is basically how I worked with this document for the last half year, and it worked. So maybe we can improve it all together and have a somewhat structured way on handling these requirements in the future. I also have a second requirement, but I guess we don't need to do that now. This detailed, this one would allow to also integrate the BTP. Basically, some external company wants to maintain, for example, quality notifications or whatsoever in our system. And as we are having an external company here without SAP accounts in our system, we'll use the BTP. And if we check it out, we'll have a persistent in the HANA Cloud to store the data, Cloud Foundry to handle the API, CRUD logic, CAP-based OData service, and the Fiori app on top of that. And in the end, it will all be moved to our backend with an hopefully released interface. This is what this could look like. Obviously, you should create a better reasoning than I did for spacing reasons. Okay, that's it regarding the decision guide. I hope I get some feedback if it's bad or not. I have no idea. But one more thing I wanted to show you today is a small open source project I created some months ago. It's the so-called extension inspector. Because in my opinion, or what I've seen in the last, are two big problems. First problem was I never knew what to choose when. This is how I solved it with the decision guide. The other problem is when I've been working with a new SAP system, I had no idea what's going on the system. I could check out the tardier, a million objects jump in your face, you don't know what to do. You can filter for specific objects to at least get a grasp of what's happening. But I wanted to have an option to understand what's in my system, how is it all interconnected to each other from a technical perspective, what development objects are doing whatsoever. So I created another one. This is also open source and free, of course. Everybody can install it via ABAPKit. And I jump in a video later on. The live button doesn't work because I didn't get the internet running. But it's basically an app that allows you to check out the three entities: development object, developer, and transport. And you can navigate between these objects. You can navigate into detail views and, for example, see class diagrams or diagrams of CDS views, released objects, all the stuff that currently had to be done via different ways on ADT or jumping into the still ABAP workbench for some information and so on. I tried to put it all together in one app. I made a small video which I can skip through to show you. So as you see, it's pretty in an early stage. And it may have some breaking changes. No worry, it won't break the system, only the app. I never write into any tables but the custom tables I created with this app. So nothing can break. So if anyone want to test it out on their system, feel free to do so. And yeah, the idea in the future is to have an overview in one picture of what objects are being used the most, what developers are working with what kind of object the most, and stuff like that. And if we, for example, press on, Let's see if I need to turn it on. Yeah. If you press on develop on objects, for example, you can see this is basically the tardier table. And you can filter it for whatever you want. So I want to see a class, I want to find custom classes, and I want to see the latest of them. So I press these buttons. I didn't release any of them, so none of them is officially released. But you can now jump into the developer, find some details here. In what transports is it part of? You can see what classes are being called from this class. So in my class, I'm calling CL, DD, DDL, whatsoever, to find some information about some objects. You can expand it to find other classes working with the class I'm working with. And yeah, I hope sometime I press on the source code button and it doesn't work, so no worries. It works on the system, but not in my demo. Same goes for DDL, so CDS views and CDS entities, which can show you what your projection of, what's your selection from. Yeah, this is the thing that didn't work. But you can also expand this one to see the service definition, the service binding on top of that. You can see the classes that are implementing some CDS views. I need to press on the button, thank you. And you can see it gets pretty complex pretty fast. But you can find all the objects and how they're interconnecting to each other. And the long-term goal of this one would also be to be able to somehow understand a function requirement based on technical objects only. So in the end, I will be able to see the CDS views, its classes, the service binding, the Fiori app that's working with the service binding, and so on. And that's basically the idea I have of this tool for the future. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Test it out if you're interested. Take part. I already created pull requests with stuff I didn't want to do, so if anybody has too much free time, feel free to add some of the features I want to see in there. Otherwise, I've been pretty fast, I guess, with 38 minutes, but unfortunately, I'm already at the end of my talk. Thank you. Sehr gut.
So, thank you very much, Roger. Any questions? At least on the chat, there was something like, where do I find all these Excel sheets and links and so on? At least I can answer the question. Afterwards, I will write an email to him. He will send me the presentation,
correct.
Right? He's
yes.
Noting. And we will publish the presentations on our GitHub repository, and later on we're also going to add the links on the agenda. So then the slides and information is available. Okay? If not, what is a Google search term for finding the Excel sheet with all the extensions and stuff?
I'd search for SAP, technology mapping, BTP, methodology, and hopefully find it. Well, you press the link in the presentation.
Okay, easy. So some questions? Raise your hand. One.
So a very nice extension inspector. I think
Thank you.
Can already imagine some interesting use cases for our applications. You mentioned you also have worked on CAP a bit.
Yeah.
And because I see you have a varied experience across different platforms here. So I have a use case where we are doing a kind of a side-by-side extension where we consume something from BTP APIs. We consume some BTP APIs. We consume some S4 on-prem APIs. And we have this option now to go do something with CAP or go with RAP on ABAP on cloud. I'm not sure which direction to go. I couldn't find any guidance when to go CAP or RAP. Personally, I would do everything in RAP. I like it.
Yeah.
But maybe I see there is a use case to use cap because it's more lightweight, but is there, from your experience, when to go cap or wrap?
Yeah, well, I may be biased, but if you're coming from an ABAP background, you should, of course, try out the ABAP cloud environment instead of getting into JavaScript, Node.js, and whatsoever. But as I've been working with JavaScript, Node.js before working with ABAP, I'd prefer cap over ABAP all the time.
Get out.
Wrong conference, I'm sorry.
Someone else? If not, we are pretty far ahead of our last person, of our time schedule, but I think this is not so bad because Markus is already here. He is ready to go. And I think instead of waiting 20 minutes for starting on time, we do it like our colleagues from Vienna and just start directly with the next session, which is also, I think, a pretty nice session for the Rauschmeißer because it's really demos, showcases, and so on about the future of Fiori elements and Fiori stuff. So I think someone is against or wants to wait 20 minutes, or can we start directly? Okay, we start directly. So,
Perfect.
Markus? Yeah, he is already here.